The Inn at the End of Things is an Acorn Arts and Entertainment podcast, independently produced by a small group of creators in Southeast Michigan. Since we run the show ad-free, we rely entirely on support from listeners like you to keep the Inn's hearth fire burning through the night. You can support us and receive bonus content with a one-time donation at www.acornartsandentertainment.com/The Inn, or by joining the Hall of Patrons within our Patreon community. Even the price of a cup of coffee goes a long way to keeping the lights on for our little inn. As folktale enthusiasts instead of academics, this is your friendly reminder that our folk and fairy tales come from the older, grimmer end of the woods and can contain material not suitable for all audiences, so listener discretion is advised. And recommended for your 5-star stay with us, the inn is best experienced somewhere cozy with a good blanket. Thanks so much for your support, and welcome. Pilgrim. I had a sneaking suspicion we'd find you on our doorstep tonight. Here at the inn, at the end of things. An unlikely champion returns to us on an evening weighted with purpose. Come in, don't mind the peskies. They'll be buzzing around until we can get them coaxed back into their burrows. It's a shame to lose all the top-shelf whiskey, but it can't be helped. Someone decided to test the wards at the corners of the inn. Oh, they held strong, not to worry. But as you can see, a bit of chaos has been thrown our way this evening, and we will rise to it as we have ever done and ever shall do. Perhaps this was not the night of rest you looked for. You came for a bit of peace and ease, to put up your feet and bathe old scars, well hidden and long worn. But we are the house where fate and coincidence leave their swords at the door and meet over dinner. Perhaps they have met, once again, over you tonight. Come along. We have good work to do this night. We'll take the escalator down to the southern tower. It does go pretty deep. This escalator's lasted for 1,001 years. Now keep your hands in and let me know how you're doing with the heights. Easy enough for your head to get a bit swimmy the first couple times. Of course, all the lamps are lit from some of the more obliging elementals in long-term residency on the top-floor suite. Lightning elementals are far more grounded than any thunder god you'll come across. And electricity ground out fresh from a morning storm? Nothing better for your wiring in all the world. Carries an extra bit of bronze in the glow, and adds just a touch more velvet to the shadows. And as you can see, there are some decently impressive works of art tucked away in those shadows, lining the subterranean walls all the way down to the library. Watch your step. Yes, it is all a bit grand. Still, tasteful. I think you will like our librarian very much. He's been waiting for you. Dr. Morio.
Yes. Oh my. It's you.
The road has brought a weary champion to our doorstep, seeking remedy in their own right. I know we have much to discuss, but as you can see, our champion is worn and weary and carries old wounds, hastily healed, if not well hidden. You wear them well, and most of us would never notice. But perhaps tonight is as good as any for a tune-up, if you don't mind my saying so. Perhaps you have a prescription, my dear doctor, for a weary soul on a long night?
Of course, come in, yes. Well, if you aren't a sight for old and sorry eyes, nearsighted behind these spectacles, of course. But even I can see that you're perfect. And wait. 3, 2... And you have now arrived precisely on time. Perfectly punctual, a minute early and a bit taller than I expected. Glorious, my dear Innkeeper, truly glorious.
I told you there was a bit of grit to you. Something behind the eyes always gives it away.
Do come in, and welcome to the library. I am Dr. Dilectius Morio ab Alexandria, physician of the fantastical, specialist in spiel, sequel, and serial, alchemist of the autobiographical, medico of meter and memoir, sawhorse of saga, and general quack of quotations. Welcome to the library, where the stories come to rest. Within these walls is an apothecary full of allegory, a physician's clinic for philosophy, and as you can see down that passage to your left, the laboratory where we conduct our experiments on epics and odes, and up the spiral staircase we keep the observatory and the dream chronicles together for ease of convenience. If you need good coffee, there's the kettle there. Sugar cubes as you like, and if you take it Turkish, we can make a good attempt with that little service set. Now, as I am a very old doctor and my eyes aren't what they used to be, come over by the fire, and if you don't mind my asking, what seems to be the trouble today? I see. It looks like you have carried that wound quite a while, no? How's it healing? Innkeeper, you were quite right to bring our patient to me this evening. Do you mind if I do a brief examination? No prods, no pokes, that's my promise. Oh no, I'm afraid I'm not that kind of doctor, and of course any prescription that we may discover together here today, I recommend taking along with all of your medications prescribed by your regular physicians. Yes? Yes. Now, if you haven't already, please close your eyes and take a deep breath in through your nose. That's it. And hold it. Just a moment. And out. That's good. I'm just going to position my paraboloscope here. It just adds a couple of lenses to the old third eye to help us see things a bit more clearly. In for me again. And hold. and out again. And one last time. In and hold and out. And now feel free to keep breathing in and out normally through your nose, keeping your body nice and relaxed. I know that exams can be intimidating to the best of us, so I hope you don't mind if I jabber a bit about myself, so that you know a little more about the odd little man with the odd contraption peering over his glasses at you. I have been practicing medicine for an absurdly long time. My speciality lies in administering to the organa anime, the machinations of the spirit. I am sure that where you come from, you have physicians tending to your physical body and perhaps the soul, if you find good health within the ever-evolving faiths, and perhaps the conscience, if you find good health within the ever-expanding sciences. For 2,011 years, next month, I have administered aid to many aches, pains, problems, and crises in every kind of patient. I was fortunate to begin my training within the greatest apothecary the world has ever seen, Bibliotheca Alexandrias. Those were Roman days then. And while Rome threatened and burned, Alexandria shone as the cerebellum of the known world, with her library as a jewel in her crown, where philosophers, doctors, poets, mathematicians, and scientists came together to sing praises to life. I was a junior librarian, physic and student of each patient that came before us, seeking remedies for all the ailments of the known world, prescriptions for the pains of the stomach, and the liver, and the heart, and the blood, carefully dosed memoirs to treat anxieties over the nature of the universe, or the nature of a fly, stories to suture the psyche, soothe the soul, and reset the spirit where broken. The library was the great center for hope, for the mending of minds communed together in healing through story, a center for a different time, an ancient time, an ancient scar for an old physician to bear through the ages of this long life. But one I do gladly and with great honor. It is no small privilege to learn from wounds that harken back to one of the deep losses of the world. An honor, yes, one we learn daily from, and one that keeps us ever sensitive to the wounds of others. Now, Innkeeper, do you see the scar tissue there? So much strain on the circulation and lymphatic systems. Your heart has been stretched a few times lately, I see. Being a muscle, the heart cannot break, but it can strain. Yes. Oh, how it can strain. You have a mighty muscle there. It loves you greatly. A faithful little dragon keeps your fires well stoked. And I see quite a few old scripts have gotten themselves tangled here right along the phantasial lobe. Many old rotting texts and spooling monologues. You see, Innkeeper, how they're all wound up here around the hypothalamus, stemming mainly from this leakage along the vestibular nerve. I imagine your sleep hasn't been very restful of late. No, not with all this parenthetical plaque built up around the retinal blood vessels. I can't imagine it has. Weary eyes have been witness to much lately. We will need one of the older stories, I think. One that brings more fuel to your little dragon, and weaves a web strong enough to bandage that wound once we apply the poultice. Yes, I believe there is something to be found deep within the foundational fables. If you'll come along with me.
Enjoy exploring the stacks, pilgrim. You are in the very best of care with our good doctor.
Now, my intrepid scholar, it's very important that we find the correct ingredients in the precise measurements for your prescription. I have an idea of where to start, and a couple stories have already come to mind, but I also think it's important for the patient to be an active participant in your own restorative. So we will have you forage out a component of your medicine among these shelves with me. Within this library lie records of every tale told by human tongue, and many, many others besides. Each story holds a nugget of truth for those who look, a stray sentence that speaks directly to the soul, a paragraph providing a balm to some unhealed hurt from a sharp word, honed down to a keen point. Words can be weapons, my friend, no matter the additional damage from sticks and stones. They all leave wounds, especially when left ignored. But always within the ailment lies the cure. So, we shall draw up a prescription together, yes? An equation worthy of Ptolemy's nod, and it will help heal that wound in your anima. Now, I'm off to scrounge around the origin fables on the 3rd level, and here is your card. You are now officially a member of the Library of the Southern Tower, the Athenaeum of the ancient Recordia Anima, et tu bibliotheca local. And with that little card, you now have access to any of the books upon its shelves. They welcome you. Now, for your prescription, I'm afraid I have to send you off on a bit of a scavenger hunt. You see, I want you to wander through the bookshelves and find a book whose cover speaks to you. Yes, of course, that's opposite to the usual approach. But for this cure, feel free to judge the book by its cover. The titles will matter less. Just pick the cover that speaks to you. You'll know it when you see it. And don't mind if you see some of the pages turning themselves. There's no ghosts here tonight. They're all up celebrating a birthday party on the 4th floor, and the books just like reading themselves from time to time. It's sort of like when we look in the mirror. Admiring one's own story is essential for a healthy spirit. For both people and books, it would seem. Now, when I've gathered all the ingredients we need, I will ring this little bell, and we'll meet back here at the fire, yes? All doors lead back here anyway. If, by chance, sleep should find you browsing the shelves of our little sanctum, take her hand and let her lead you to the older bookcases in the eastern wing. You will find the very oldest tales waiting for you there. Fables woven long before human tongues could form the pictures in their minds. They will sing you to sleep as she gently rocks you in front of the fire and frees you from the aches and cares of the waking world. You have your card. The library is here whenever you wish to return, and your book is resting, gently dreaming of the right moment to be found. Off you go. Happy hunting. The patient returns. What have you discovered, my friend? Yes, I see. A fine story has selected you tonight. There is good medicine to be made from these ingredients if my calculations are correct. Carry the 2 and add the 4 and a bit of hubris, a smattering of bees. Yes, good. And we divide by the length of the denouement. Round it all up to the nearest moral, and there we are. Ha! Yes, I think this will do nicely. A good origin myth with 4 old chestnuts and a simple truth. And you have found the perfect cover. If you'll just hand that to me. A fine remedy to ease our hurts. Are you comfortable? Very good. Well then, once upon a time, the world was only a child, and all the animals could speak, and Kwaku Anansi, the one who sometimes walks as a man and sometimes walks as a spider, was furious, kicking rocks down the road, shaking his fists at the sky, and muttering to himself, kind of furious. You see, Anansi was charming, and so handsome that he could win you over the second he flashed that big smile. But no amount of smiles, or flash, or charm had convinced Nyame, the sky god, to give him a single story. You see, back then, when the world was only a child, Nyame owned all the stories, every story that had ever yet been told, which may be fewer than today, but certainly was a lot back then. And Nyame the sky god kept them all in a big, beautiful ceramic jar, where he could take them out from time to time and show them off to the people he wanted to impress. Anansi wanted those stories for himself. He went up to Nyame that morning and asked how much he would sell them for. Nyame laughed in front of all the other important gods. You could not pay the price, he chuckled. Many bigger and bolder than you have tried, but none have been able to succeed. You must bring me Onini, the great python, Morboro, the swarm of sacred bees, Osibo, the cunning leopard, and Motya, the fairy. If you can bring me these, I will sell you the world's stories. I'll have them all here within the week, promised Anansi with a charming grin as he bowed low, the laughter of all the gods ringing in his ears. That's why he was furious, kicking rocks all the way back home to his wife, Ayrault. "Stop that," she said, when she saw him coming down the lane. "Leave those rocks alone and come inside. Tell me what the sky god has said to you now." Anansi told her what the sky god said, and Ayrault chuckled to herself. "Is that all?" she asked. "But Ayrault," said Anansi miserably, "how will I ever do one of these tasks? They are impossible. Onini the serpent is huge. How will I ever catch him?" "Oh, that's simple enough, my love." And she whispered her idea into his ear, and they both laughed in delight. Anansi went into the forest and cut down the biggest tree limb he could find, and quite a deal of vine that he would use as rope. Then he dragged them over near the river where Onini came to drink, and waited. Sure enough, it was not long before his sharp ears heard Onini approaching, slithering through the long grass. Anansi made sure that his voice boomed out nice and loud as he started walking up and down the length of that mighty tree branch, arguing with himself. Couldn't possibly be. I don't care what she says. No way it's longer. Onini raised his great head as it parted the grass around them. "Little Kwaku Anansi, what are you yammering on about?" Anansi bowed low and smiled. "Onini," he said, dancing a little jig of joy, "I'm so glad you're here. You can answer a bet between me and my wife. She insists that you are shorter than this tree branch we found. I told her that she should take the lies out of her mouth, wash them with lye soap, and hang them out to dry the next time she wants to insult your magnificence." Onini stretched himself proudly in the morning sun. "Oh, this will be easily settled, Anansi. Lay down your branch, and you will quickly win your bet, little spider." So Anansi laid the branch down, and Onini stretched himself out beside it. "You're a little short," said Anansi from down by his tail. "Can you stretch out a little further?" So Onini stretched a little more. "Oh, now your tail has moved," said Anansi. "When you stretch out your head, your tail moves up. And when you stretch your tail, your head moves up. What shall we do? I'll never settle this bet, and my wife will laugh at me till I'm deaf in both ears." "Why don't you tie my tail to the end with that vine?" Onini suggested. "When you've got it nice and secure, I'll stretch myself to the end so there's no slipping," said the snake, positioning himself along the branch. "A wonderful idea, great Python," agreed Anansi cheerfully. And faster than Onini could blink his lidless eyes, Anansi had him tied up from tail to flickering tongue. Much longer was the journey Onini had to endure as Anansi dragged him up to Nyame's house. The spider made sure to take the long way around, and sang a song as loudly as he could shout about how he had captured Onini, the great python. Onini could only fume and writhe against the ropes in vain, his body and ego heavily bruised along the long road. Finally, Anansi pulled Onini up before Nyame's doorstep and called the sky god's name. Nyame came to the window to look down at the spider and the heavily bound python, and merely waved to his servants to pick up the ends of the mighty branch and carry Onini away without a word. Anansi was back to kicking rocks all the way back home to Ayrault, his wife. "He wouldn't even speak to me," he shouted, once back inside their home. "There I had Onini, the great python, trussed up like a chicken, and he barely even looked at me. There is no end to Nyame's disrespect. If I couldn't impress him with an enormous python, how will I ever get those stories? I should give up now. After all, I'm only a little spider. How will I ever catch Moboro, the great swarm of bees?" "They're more like hornets than bees," said Ayrault thoughtfully. "Much bigger and angrier, too, with giant stingers." Anansi glared at his wife. "I thought you were helping." Ayrault glared at her husband, a smile playing around her lips. "And I thought you were the big man, Mr. Python Catcher. Mr. Mighty Snake Charmer was here just a minute ago, but I must have been mistaken. There is a stranger in our home, Anansi. Oh no, help!" Anansi threw himself on the ground. "I'm just glad that you can laugh at your own jokes, Ayrault. Someone has to." "No, my silly spider, I am laughing at you," his wife said gaily. "Now get up and go get a calabash from the garden. Cut yourself a banana leaf, fetch us some water, and I will tell you how to charm the giant swarm of killer hornet bees next." So, Anansi filled a gourd with water and found himself a good broadleaf, and made his way out to the huge clay nest of Moboro. This tribe of hornets was enormous, and their stingers were deadly. But Anansi, on Aso's advice, went out during the heat of the day, when all the insects were sleeping inside the cool hive. Anansi sprinkled half the calabash of water over the entrance of the hive, and drenched himself with the rest, holding a banana leaf over his head and shaking his head at the sky. Marlborough bees came drowsily to the front of the hall, demanding to know why Anansi was stomping around about outside their home. "Look," said Anansi urgently. "Not a cloud in the sky, but it started to rain. Look how drenched I've gotten. It's ruined my good suit. Here you all had better get out of that clay nest before it traps you, or even gets washed away." The bees clustered around the front entrance, buzzing amongst themselves. After all, the rains are heavy when they are sudden, and mud nests provide little protection in a flood. "What should we do?" they asked anxiously. "How can we move the whole colony?" "Here, quick," said Anansi, holding up the calabash. "Fly into my gourd, and I will bring you all safely inside where it's dry, and you may make a new home for yourselves when the rain has stopped." The Marlborough tribe thanked Anansi for his quick thinking and flew all of their beefolk into the gourd, elders and children, rich and poor alike. Once the last one had flown into the calabash, Anansi stopped up the mouth of that gourd with a bit of that banana leaf. He even used some of the mud from the entrance of their old home to seal it up with all the hornets inside. Then Anansi took the long road to Nyame's house, singing out his triumph to everyone who would listen, and shaking the angrily buzzing calabash with glee as he skipped down the high road. But there was nothing the Marlborough colony could do, trapped within Anansi's gourd. He laid his prize at Nyame's doorstep again and called out proudly. But the sky god only looked down at the gourd, sniffed without a word, and signaled to his servants with a finger to take it away. To this day, I don't know how Kwaku Anansi ever walked again. He kicked so many rocks along the short distance back to his house. The spider was spitting out a steady stream of words that I will not repeat here by the time he walked back in through his doorway. "I see it went well," said Aso brightly. "Enough grouching. There's no time. Go get yourself a shovel. For in order to capture Osebo the leopard, you will have to dig a great hole, and that will take most of the night." Still grumbling to himself, Anansi went back out into the evening to look for the leopard's tracks. It was not long before he found Osebo's hunting grounds and the well-worn path the giant night predator had taken to find his dinner. Anansi dug a very deep hole right along the path and made sure to cover it up with plenty of dead leaves, branches, and grass. Then he settled himself down to a good sleep after all that work while he waited. A few hours later, Anansi was awakened with the sounds of crashing through branches and the yelps from a very surprised jaguar emerging from the pit. "Osebo, are you all right?" he asked, hurrying to the edge of the hole. "How did you end up down there?" "Hurry, Anansi, and get me out of here," yowled Osebo, scrambling against the sliding walls of the pit. But the hole was too deep for the mighty cat to climb. "In a heartbeat, great Osebo," said Anansi, bowing low and smiling widely. "But I know you must be hungry after all your exertions, and with all due respect, mighty Leopard King, how do I know that you won't swallow me whole the moment you get out of that nasty pit?" The leopard growled and gave his word that he would not eat Anansi, and the spider immediately sprang into action. Throwing the rope vine down to Osebo, he tied the other end to a young green sapling tree growing next to the pit. Then he called down to the jaguar. Is it tied tight? I've got this end tied tightly to my tail, Ossibo called back. Now get me out. With pleasure, said Anansi cheerfully, and he let go of the sapling. Well, once Ossibo had caught his breath from being whipped back and forth like a rag doll in a hurricane by that green sapling, he realized that he was hanging upside down by his tail, with Anansi's face grinning back at him. Hello, Ossibo, said the spider cheerfully as he tied the rest of the jaguar's limbs together tightly and muzzled snapping jaws. Please stop snapping at me. You'll only tire yourself out. And laughing his way into the morning sun, Anansi led the hobbled and greatly embarrassed Ossibo all the long way up to Nyame's house, tugging on the leash and shouting out all sorts of insults, even riding on Ossibo and kicking him with his heels, chuckling at the jaguar snarls. But Nyame only stifled a yawn and twirled Ossibo's rope between long, bored fingers when Anansi handed it to him. But where is the motia I was promised? He laughed carelessly and shut the door in Anansi's face. This time, Anansi did not turn over so much as a pebble along the way back. He squared his shoulders and walked deliberately home, step by step. He was so close. Those stories would be his before the end of the week. Soon Nyame would be coming to him for all the stories told to those self-important gods. Everyone would finally have to come to him. Yes, Anansi would be the one laughing then, and he started laughing now, and he laughed the rest of the way home, doing a little dance in through his doorway. He kissed Asso on the cheek without a word, and went to his back garden for a good long think. Anansi still had to capture Motia, one of the quick little folk that lived close to the earth and knew much magic in those days. He puzzled all afternoon, and then, taking out his knife, carved out an aquaba, a beautiful black fertility doll. He carefully made her entirely from ebon wood and adorned her with precious jewelry. He covered the doll in sticky resin from a nearby gum tree, and then made some mashed yams, putting a little into the doll's hand and the rest in a dish by her side. He tied strings to her arms, legs, and neck, and put her at the foot of the odum tree, where the fairies often came to play, hiding himself behind a big bush. Soon enough, one of the motia came dancing along and spotted the aquaba with her bowl of ecto. "May I please share some of your food?" asked the fairy hungrily. Anansi pulled the string tied to the doll's neck, and it seemed to nod. Motia ate a little of the delicious yams and thanked the doll. "That was very good. Thank you for your generosity," the fairy said, brushing off their hands. The doll remained silent and only stared straight ahead. "I said thank you," said the fairy again, peevishly. But the doll remained silent. Motia grew angry at the doll's silence. The rudeness was more than they could stand, and they shoved at the doll's shoulder angrily, only to find their hand stuck to the gooey resin covering the doll. The fairy exploded with rage and started punching, kicking, and biting at the doll, yelling for her to let go, but to no avail. The more the fairy struggled, the more entrapped they got by the sticky glue. Finally, Anansi hopped out from behind the bush, rubbing his hands together with glee as he wound Motia up with strong bonds, still glued helplessly to the aquaba. Then he went into his house, put on his best suit, carefully combed his hair, slipped on his finest shoes, kissed Asso and his children, and led that poor fairy down the long road, singing with all his might, and stepping out with his best foot forward. Everyone came to stare now as Anansi strutted his way slowly down the wide lane, gliding along with all 8 legs and twirling his cane, wearing a grin that put the sun to shame. He arrived before Nyame's great house with a parade of animals and people following behind him, dancing to his steps and cheering on Anansi, the one man clever enough to outwit the sky god. Bowing low enough that his hat scraped the ground, Anansi handed over the rope to the tight-lipped Nyame and cheerfully waved at Motya as they were led off by the sky god's servants to clean the resin away. Without a word, Nyame handed over the huge ornate jar that held all the stories sealed up within it, turned on his heel back into his house, and slammed the door shut. Anansi hugged the jar of stories close to his chest and sighed lovingly as he allowed the wave of victory to roll over him. Then he threw his head back with the laugh that erupted out of his soul. That particular laugh had been growing deep within the pit of his stomach for many years, and now it shuddered its way out of him, loud and triumphant. That laugh clawed its way into the air and twisted itself into something vicious as Anansi danced in front of all the animals and gods, singing out his vindication and telling everyone exactly what he thought of them. They would have to come to him now if they wanted their stories. They'd all have to beg and cry and plead and kiss his ring before he'd even think about sharing a word from his jar. And just as things started getting really and truly embarrassing, Anansi gave a last barking laugh, threw up his hands, and did a final twirling bow right into the jar of stories. It shattered into 1,000 pieces on the hard ground, scattering the shards far across the earth. The animals stared in wonder as the stories leaped joyfully into the air, little snatches of color and poetry spilling out freely onto the wind and gliding over the treetops. Anansi stood there speechless, and the gods came back out to watch the glittering streams of stories float and dance and disappear their way into the world. Ayrault shut her husband's gaping mouth with a little kiss. "Come on, silly spider, let's go home," she said. "Let's leave the stories to be free as they belong." And that is how they have remained ever since. Now then, this medicine will take a while to settle within the body, spirit, and soul, but I can already see the effects glimmering just there, and there, just under the surface. It's easy to find fault in Anansi. Yes, I know many do, and all rightfully so. Some even fear him, and will run out of the room if they see a spider in the corner. But it is bad luck to kill one for good reason. For they are the fellow spinners of stories, the children of Anansi, and they take care of the gnats and mosquitoes and little buzzing disruptive thoughts nibbling away at your peace. They build the strongest webs, built one day, blown down the next, built again by nightfall. Lessons in a persistent life. Spiders build good webs where the good stories can stick. They collect much and keep nothing. We give what we get, and we lose what we hoard. And the stories belong to no one, but to all. This is a very old story that contains a few smaller stories, carefully measured together to balance any reactive side effects. Some ingredients you may recognize from younger tales, closer to your age, with different heroes leaping about with different tricks. Different names for those who need them most within their own time. Yes? Yes. My intrepid little scholar, you have found good medicine and meaning deep within these tales. Even a blind old librarian can see that. Thank you for the honor of sharing this good medicine with you tonight.
Now then, you old sawbones. You're practically glowing. How did it go?
The wounds seen and unseen will take time. The hurt will not be healed all at once, I'm afraid. It takes time for the spirit to break down the antidote and circulate it through the system. But a story can support the physical body, my friend. It is the stories we repeat into belief that determine our actions. A good story can nourish the anima and fuel our better angels to carry us forward along our road to healing. A good story can also poison our every waking hour into a feeding frenzy of neglected appetites, trapping us deep within our own fears. Perhaps when you dream tonight, some little ingredient from the story will present itself to you in an unexpected way. And then, perhaps tomorrow, another will pop out at breakfast. And then another after work. And then another in the smile of a stranger. And still another again. Each time may present a solution that will get a little easier to flex with practice and patience.
Ah, Pilgrim. The good doctor's worked his magic again.
Medicine, my dear innkeeper. Magicians practice magic. I work in the storied sciences.
Medicine stirred with a bit of sugar and served with the finest coffee in the place. And, Doctor, the book?
Ah, yes, the book. There is a book that was taken from the innermost sanctum of this library last night. It is an ancient book, far older than I am. Some say it was one of the original 7 scrolls of written stories first given to your world. In it are symbols to kindle any imagination to truly dizzying potential, to motivate the great sonnet of a generation, or paint the dream never seen before, or to crack the code for the invention that will change the course of time. It is a marvelous book. Of course, it also has the power to draw the reader within its bindings and suck away their energy, youth, time, and attention until all that is left is an empty, withered shell, hungrily devouring the scroll's images with hollow eyes. This book has been stolen tonight.
Thus up is down and left is right, and all the bizarro timelines are converging. Well, what else is new?
You have come to us exactly as written. Your wounds will heal, and you will be strong again. This is already known. But what is not known is if you will assist us. Will you pause your pilgrimage on our behalf? Will you join us in this quest? Will you help us recover the Book of Crux?
Well, you needn't answer now. This is no small thing to ask, and the hour is far too late for pledges and blood oaths and other such honorable nonsense. Tonight, you should rest. Your room is waiting, and the lights are turned down low. Sleep on your answer, If you choose, you can return here any time with your library card, and the good doctor will show you the clues that we have been able to gather.
Yes, yes. We will find out where the thief has disappeared to through the many legendariums of lore we have tucked away in the vault. It appears that they may have escaped into one of the books in the West Wing, which may be a bit tricky to isolate, but I have faith that we will be able to recover the lost Book of Crux with our wits and our gifts and our comrades. Forgive my eagerness. I get excited at the prospect of a new adventure, but of course, we must first be up to the journey. It has been a pleasure caring for you this evening. Until we meet again.
Think on it. As I said, no need to reply right away. Keep your key with you, close to your heart. Hold it fast in your right hand. When next you find yourself in a dream within a dream, turn 3 times, and you will find the path wind its way back to us. Though the road may be long, and your heart may be weary, the key will always find its way back to your room, the one with your lucky number, waiting for you here at the inn at the end of things. You've been listening to The Inn at the End of Things, an Acorn Arts and Entertainment production. Tonight's tale featured performances by Dan Johnson as Dr. Dilectius Morio, the Librarian, and Luna Alexander as the Innkeeper. Tonight's episode was written by Luna Alexander, with production and technical support from Josie Eli Herman and Michael Allen Herman. As our evening draws to a close, we'd like to pause here within our Hall of Patrons to thank the many wanderers, voyageurs, and fellow night owls who keep our hearth fires burning long into the night. Whether you're a member of our Patreon community or have donated independently, we salute you and say thanks. We couldn't do it without your support. This week's list of hallowed heroes includes Sarah McNitt, Amanda Logston, Jason Such, Brian LeDuc, Ruth Needler, Joanna Corina Palaska, Chris Hoffman Kraske, Patricia Tuma, John Stanford, Lindsay Harris Friel, Robin Schwalanek Krenzel. A special thank you to the Plymouth Community Arts Council for their sponsorship of our first season, and a reminder to support your local arts communities. May your generosity be returned threefold.